Something's been going on in the last few days, last few weeks, but I think it became extremely clear with the storming of the Capitol. There has been a facilitation, whether it's been conscious or not, an enabling, a facilitation of the rise of fascism over at least the Trump years, and it never really went away. But I'll start off with Dave Sirota's piece in Jacobin. Friend of the show, Dave Sirota, makes the case that conditions for the far-right insurrection on the Capitol are not new. They've been created through the support of right-wing legislators, deliberate decisions by law enforcement, and the urging of Trump. Mm-hmm. Francesca, I mean, at this point where McConnell seems to have woken up to something that was right in front of his face the whole time, and he was probably aware of, we have so much work to just rip this apart. And what is it going to take for us to fight? What is it going to take for us to not just expose, but really purge, whether it's fascism, white extremism, white nationalism, I'm going to say, because there's a nationalist tendency to this. What is it going to take for us?
Oh my God. Everything. So, oh my gosh, so much anti-racist Sesame Street, which I already thought Sesame Street was anti-racist because, you know, it's like everyone's a different color. There's like a, you know, homeless man, you know, there's just like a lot of, it's like, didn't we all learn our lessons back when we learned our ABCs that like, you know, we are all equal, but that's, of course, that's a liberal pipe dream. I'm a lib for even liking Sesame Street. Here's the point. Dave Sirota in that piece basically argues that we are, in order to root out extremism, we're also going to need positive plans that actually materially help people out. And I think that this is going forward. For me, it's the two-pronged strategy of, or maybe it's three, but one, ignoring the Republican Party. We got the Senate. Y'all can sit on it and rotate. I'm sorry. Like you can go away forever. We don't need you. But that means whipping the Democrats, right? I mean, that means actually having power in the Democratic Party to really deliver for the American people and steer them away from some of this, you know, bonkers conspiracy, you know, the onslaught of right-wing media that is constantly filling their brain with worms, straight up literal worms. And so that is one. It's really not compromising with the Republican Party. And then it's like, okay, well, where are we pushing? Like, where do we go? How do we deliver for people? You know, whether it's a federal jobs guarantee, Green New Deal, more than $2,000 stimulus, like dropping student debt. And then finally, let me just say that for the Sesame Street stuff, like, yo, you guys, there needs to be a federal plan to address racism and, you know, and because I'm calling it what it is, it's white nationalist extremist violence. That is exactly what it is. There needs to be an educational plan coming from the federal government. Like it should be mandated. It should be mandated to learn about our own history. You cannot paper over the Confederacy. And, you know, as I think many schools in the South have been papered over when they're like, read about, oh, and then there was a disagreement and the Confederate flag is all about patriotism. You know, like,
meanwhile, they're learning this at Robert E. Lee Elementary School.
Totally. So
it's like, it actually, I mean, that's such a great point because in Germany, for instance, I mean, granted, we have different free speech laws, which is their loophole. Germany has done they've been so aggressive about amending and making up and re-educating even folks who were, I mean, they're barely alive now, but who lived through World War II. There's been a very strategic effort to do so. And this isn't, you know, Germany's not the only place, but do you think that, I mean, I start off the show saying like, this is our moment. We got to start talking to people now before they get distracted by something else, which they're already starting to do. Fox News is already talking about, well, BLM was just as violent and you know, okay, yes, the violence was really bad the other day, but also BLM was really violent. I mean, that's their messaging now because they're trying to pivot to something. They're grasping.
Sure.
While we have them in the moment, while we have Senator Lindsey Graham, while we have McConnell really calling out Josh Hawley, calling out Ted Cruz, calling out Donald Trump, while we are about to go into another impeachment, we got to get something. Channeling our inner Jane McAlevey, we got to get something through this. And maybe it's just that.
And I mean, to be honest with you, I do think there has to be accountability. And that's been the biggest problem, sadly, throughout our whole history, is there hasn't been accountability for insurrectionism, for, like even after the Civil War, like there was, I believe, I can't remember, maybe it was when slavery ended, that like white former slave owners got reparations for the money they lost because they could no longer own slaves. So that is the world we're in. And we started with that Reconstruction, right? When there were actually Black officials from the South elected to local and to federal government. And then, of course, there was an entire white backlash and they formed the KKK, et cetera. So like, it is accountability. And for me, I don't see a difference between holding never ever holding those former Confederate states accountable to what we just saw the other day. How are we holding Republican lawmakers who, I'm just going to say it, they're an insurrectionist party? Noam Chomsky called the Republican Party the greatest, the organization that poses the greatest threat to life on earth. Like, whether it's climate change, white nationalism, like that's not hyperbole anymore.
No.
So it is, what is the accountability? How, I think Cori Bush is doing a good thing in terms of trying to get these folks to resign. But for me, I'm like, I don't know if that's going to happen, but it should. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I'm also like, I don't ever want to hear a Republican say anything else unless it is, here is my plan to stop the extremism in this country. Here is my plan to stop white nationalism. That's it. Like if on MSNBC, if you're a former Republican, Michael Steele, I don't care about your moralisms. No. How are you going to stop the white nationalism that you allowed to fester in your party beginning before Obama, but absolutely under Obama? What are you going to do? Or do you let that party go? Are you making a new party? You can't have the Democratic Party as much as they're trying to infect ours.
The Lincoln Project. Maybe you should add amending your party's racial positioning as one of your multi-million-dollar ad campaigns. That would be great. Just a thought. Okay, so the Republican Party needs to be crushed. The racism in the Republican Party needs to be crushed. White supremacy needs to be cracked down on, and folks need to be arrested and prosecuted. This is the only time I'm ever going to call for police to arrest folks. Arrest these motherfuckers. Because this was horrifying. And if you're part of it, they should be investigated and arrested. And the FBI, whose investigations have been going on for over a decade, what are you doing about it?
No, I think that the directive since Trump got in office was to shut down a lot of the investigations that had been started into some of these, far right militant organizations. So we have to reopen those. And look, all we're asking is for you to treat these insurrectionists the same way you treat, a Black Lives Matter demonstrator, someone protesting against the IMF and World Bank, the Iraq War, Occupy Wall Street, someone who did property damage, people who have been charged with federal crimes and facing like 70 years. Like they're in the insane ways that, and look, I'm not saying that's good, but like you can't, if you wield justice in that way, it's time to wield it once again, except against actual threats to, because once again, these people don't believe in government. No. I think that the left, we are critical and cynical of government, of course, especially cynical of the amount of money that flows through it. But we ultimately are trying to make these institutions better and more representative. These folks don't believe it. They think they hate the police. All the police, they're trying to tell you what you can and can't do. They're trying to tell you that you shouldn't be able to walk around with your AR-15 or whatever it is,
Thanks for watching and listening to The Nomiki Show. But remember to click like and subscribe on YouTube, and please share on social media. If you're not already a patron, please join us for as low as $5 a month on patreon.com/The Nomiki Show for early and special content. That investment makes a huge difference. We are not corporate media raking in the dough. It's really you guys that are keeping us going. So please consider being a patron. And to our current patrons, thank you so much. We are incredibly grateful to you. We also now have swag. So check us out on thenomikishow.com to get your mugs, your totes, and your stickers.